What if your IT service desk helped you put your customers first? It can happen when it's powered by the world's most trusted cloud platform. Industry leaders BMC Software and Salesforce.com offer the fastest growing IT service management solution in the market today, RemedyForce. Let's meet Sally. Last week, Sally requested an iPhone by logging a ticket using the hashtag request capability, found exclusively in RemedyForce. IT got a request, and Sally got her iPhone. All was good until her mobile email stopped working. No worries. Sally jumps on to the RemedyForce self-service portal, and before submitting a service request, she checks out the articles section and quickly finds a possible solution to her problem by resetting her phone. Sally finds easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructions on how to remove and reinsert her SIM card. In this case, resetting her iPhone didn't work, so Sally decides to get help from IT. She gives them information about her problem and submits the service ticket. It's instantly routed to a service desk agent. Now, as an agent, you can start to get more information about Sally's problem. You can quickly tell if there's a problem on a larger scale. Right away, you notice there's planned maintenance. And diving deeper, you see there's a problem associated with the server and email on mobile devices. It also looks like someone has already issued a request for change, so you check out the latest status. Good news! There's a rollout plan, a backup plan, and information about who approved the change. It looks like Sally's email will be back up and running in no time. That makes Sally happy, and you a hero. Email is just one of the many critical business services your customers rely on. And with RemedyForce, you can monitor the status of any business or IT service at a glance. Deployment is fast and easy with no hardware or software to manage. Upgrades are automatic, so you'll always be on the newest version with the latest features. And RemedyForce is accessible to customers anywhere, anytime, on any device. Keep your employees happy and your business thriving. Try RemedyForce today.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. My name is James Woodward, and I'm from Manchester Metropolitan University in Manchester, UK. The talk was originally entitled ITIL versus Process, but I've gone through the appropriate change control and renamed it to ITIL versus Reality. So I must apologise, however, it is still the same subject area. Just going to share my screen as I do have some slides to share with you this afternoon. So then, good morning to those in Vegas that are joining us. Hope you're having a good time at TFT14. Sorry we can't be with you. However, you'll be pleased to hear it is raining back in the UK and indeed Manchester. So once again, I'm from Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. You can follow me with the Twitter hashtag _levelup. And I'd just like to thank you for enabling me to be a part of this great event. I followed it last year when it was on as part of the SDI conference, and I'm sure I'll be following it again in the summer in June. Anyway, I've been working within the higher education arena for about 13 years, involved mainly in user support. And I think the purpose of today was to look at the insight into my ITIL journey, hopefully making it a little bit funny on the way, and as well as interactive. So I've got a series of polls, and we'll be trying to do some online polls just to see what the people, yourselves out there listening, think of what my thoughts are, as well as to give me a chance to kind of interact with you a bit. So I'm going to try and make you think about what ITIL has given you, and more importantly, what I think it's missed on the way. I've been interested in service management for a number of years, and have indeed gone through an ITIL journey. But the takeaways, which I hope that you will get out of today, is through the online polling, find out what your peers, colleagues, and everyone else out there watching this presentation is thinking now. If you're about to go down the ITIL route, what else do you think you need to consider or indeed ask for as part of that? Hopefully, you'll learn that ITIL on its own won't necessarily get you very far, but it is a good starting point. And besides all else, you definitely need some buy-in. Now, I was going to show you a video, however, I've wimped out of that technology. So the link is up there and it will be available for you to look at. However, the video was going to tell a story of how ITIL relates to a restaurant setup. And the video makes it look as though ITIL will solve all your IT problems. It tells the story of, indeed, from the dinner, needing to serve food in a correct way, and it's all about the service. You can't necessarily bring out soup for a dessert or ice cream as a main. Everything needs to come in the right order in order to get the best experience for the customer. IT in the past used to concentrate on silos such as networks, systems, backups, servers, etc. But these days, we're looking at more how IT can work as a service. So within the restaurant arena, when you look at the theme in the restaurant, deciding how your restaurant's going to look, what you're going to theme it, what you're going to cook, etc., they say in the video that relates to service strategy. Your menu design, working out what complements dishes in order to make it a nice experience. That looks at service, sorry, the theming was service strategy. The design, menu design was service design. Making sure really that IT meets what the requirements want. Make sure that your customers ensure that they're meeting what their requirements are food-wise. When you go to cook, practice, prepare food, that's the same thing as the service transition. We make sure we plan releases and changes to maximize benefits to the business. When the waiter delivers the service and in a sense owns customer satisfaction, that's similar to service operation. The service desk take ownership of incidents within IT and ensure that as they are the face of IT, that they provide a really good service. And overall, the maitre d', the person responsible for the standards, is similar to that of CSI, continuous service improvement, where we're always looking to measure and improve the service that we give. So before we go any further, I wanted to see if people were able to use the poll everywhere setup that we've got working today. So the easiest way to do it is, if you've got a browser there, is to go to the pollev.com/TFT14. See what I did there? Or indeed, you can tweet in at the leveler, which is my Twitter name, with the following code, just to see if any of the results come in. So if you'd like to try it now and see if that works, that would be great. I'll give you a minute or so to see if things are going to come in. Are we having issues with this? No. Either I'm missing something. One person, one result. Okay. Anyone else like to try the poll? Okay, well, we can continue without the poll. That's not a problem. Okay, so to continue the story, a while back, probably back in the early 2000s, it's certainly been a few years since I'd done a course, and especially one that had an exam, there was an opportunity to do some training, and it was identified amongst a few peers that ITIL Foundation is the latest buzzword and something that we should look at getting trained on. So I got the satchel out and off I went back to school. It felt like going back to school anyway. I thought it'd be good to learn about something new, and as there was a lot of talk around ITIL at that time, and we're talking version 2, it was relevant to what I was doing, and I thought it was standing as stead for future. It was also good to go and see and learn a new framework, something that I'd personally not really done before since being at university. So we went and did the ITIL exams. I'm conscious that this might not work, but we'll give it a go. Has anyone else out there done the ITIL exams? Okay, someone's responded. That's good. Just give another couple of seconds, see if anyone else out there can tweet in using the poll. Okay. Well, when I did the ITIL Foundation course, I did it within a higher education environment with colleagues from a couple of universities. And all I kept hearing was, well, sounds good, but ITIL won't work here. It will never work here. But from discussions I had with other people that started this journey at a similar time, and those who hadn't written the course or developed the framework, it seemed like a very similar story as well. People were having issues understanding what a framework was. How can we be expected to implement all this? This isn't relevant to my role. Shouldn't we get more senior management on the course so they too can understand what this ITIL is all about? Looking back, the trainers were probably more concerned about you passing the exam, and probably me, if I'm being a little bit honest, because at the end of the day, failing the exam wasn't going to look good on your own personal development. However, I got through it and managed to see where there could be some benefits in this new to us ITIL regime. And indeed, I did get the green badge. You got to remember that ITIL is all about the badges. Did anyone else think that ITIL wouldn't work out there? I'm going to persevere with these polls in a hope that potentially people that might be dipping in and out can see the polls as well. Indeed, if you want to respond using the questions as well, I can be monitoring those at the same time as the polls, if that helps. From the discussions I've had with people working in different areas, it was definitely the case of this big new ITIL world that we were living in certainly wasn't going to work for us. I'm not sure that was the case, though. I think maybe we just weren't able to understand what it was and the point that we were trying to get across. For those of you who can't see the link, it is the pollev.com/TFT14. Okay, one comment that's come in is saying ITIL is good, but should be tailored to the organisation. Thank you, Andy. If indeed you do want to make any comments, because I'm using my slides, I am able to look at the comments as they're coming in as well. And I'm just tweeting out the poll link as well. Okay, let's move on. So, when I Googled framework, because if you don't know anything, you've got to Google, and as a retweet I put out there earlier in the week, if Google doesn't know the answer, it's not really a question. I got this quote, and this quote came from the Free Dictionary. A lot of people were saying, can we be ITIL compliant? Well, a framework is a set of resources that you can pick and choose from. As Andy mentioned earlier, it should be tailored to the organisation. So I'm not sure you can't be ITIL compliant. You can follow some of the ITIL processes. You can definitely try and implement some of the ITIL processes, but you can't be ITIL compliant. There are, however, numerous benefits to ITIL. It does give you a common language. Those of you in the know can communicate without getting confused on definitions such as incidents and problems. It does give you a starter for 10, or probably a lot more. It does give you the outline processes, which a lot of people still use and will continue to use. A quote which I got the other day was ITIL as a common language is really quite important in service management. It allows a non-native English speaker speaking ITIL to communicate with their colleagues more effectively than a native speaker who doesn't speak ITIL. It's like a little language they have on their own. But even for that, a full-blown foundation certificate isn't needed. It's just general awareness. So there are definite benefits to ITIL, definite benefits to having a framework, and definite benefits to having a structured approach to process. So, not being put off by foundation in the early years, I thought it'd be good to explore ITIL in more detail. And I went through the ITIL Managers version 2 exams, mainly because I heard that you could actually get another badge, which was quite good as well. Always good to get badges. So ITIL version 2, though, seemed to be a lot of hard work. I would say I lost a couple of months of my life. We had to learn it all from scratch, but we also had to learn it all off by heart for the exams. The exams were such that there were 2 3-hour written exams that you had to do the day before as mock exams as well. So having actually not done a lot of writing recently, because we all know we work in IT and now all we have to do is type, the fingers were kind of sore at the end of it, to be honest. When version 3 came out, though, I didn't want to get left behind either. So I went back to school for another week in order to become an ITIL expert. Now, I'm sure that there are many people listening to this who indeed are ITIL experts. I did get a purple badge for that, so I do have proof. But after spending that much time learning about the framework and doing the exams, I suppose you do deserve to be called an expert in something at the end of the day. I think the ITIL 3 did actually teach me quite a lot more about the continual service improvement. It tried to link in the processes together, really showed how they would work together, rather than the version 2, which had the service design and service support element. I think it gave you a fuller way of looking at that as a complete framework. And I also appreciate now that the ways in which you can go about getting the ITIL qualifications have changed. I think they needed to. And that you can do the capability streams, which do mean that you can do the elements of ITIL which are relevant to the areas for which you work in. However, after doing the exams and having a bit of training within ITIL, it was time to go away and try and implement this. So did anyone try and implement any ITIL after doing the exams? We've got some more polls coming in. Certainly from when I gave this presentation last week at a Service Desk Institute event, most people have gone away and tried to define the incident management, definitely first of all. And then some were looking at some of the other elements of problem management, change management, and config management as well. Okay, let's move on. Now, I think ITIL did give some confusion in the early days. It certainly confused me. Some of the talk on the financial management side of things when I was managing only the service desk got a bit difficult to understand during the exams. Determining the difference between change and release management. Of course, if you're going to change something, you've got to release it. So what's the difference? The capacity versus availability? I suppose the hardest one to get my head around was the configuration management side of things. It seemed like a lot of hard work. Indeed, in a previous organisation I worked in, we did try and start the configuration management side of things, but it grew and grew and grew. Now, having worked in HE, they're usually large institutions with numerous assets and underlying infrastructure supporting those. So I can see why config management might be a lot harder within really large institutions or organisations than it can be on smaller organisations. Or maybe it was because we were trying to do too much without having a defined goal, without having the proper processes in place. However, I have been involved in implementing some ITIL processes. So yes, we've looked at incident management. It seemed to go okay, actually. We standardized what we were doing throughout the different support teams that we had. This helped us to ensure that we were using our service management software in the correct way. I think that was one of the real benefits that we got out of standardizing how we deal with our incidents. It meant that we got some proper information that we could use for benchmarking, that we could really use for making improvements. We had a look at the service catalogue. We had a look at this numerous times, trying to define what goes in the service catalogue and how the service catalogue should work. We are on version 2 of the service catalogue and have definitely seen the benefits of having a service catalogue, especially when negotiating service provision with the wider business. It's also helped with working on defining the IT strategy, defining services within a service lifecycle, ensuring how services are brought into the organisation from the business requirements from that, how they mature within the organisation, to how they finally become retired due to either technology going out of date or the demand for the service has actually diminished. So that's something that's been really quite useful. And I would urge anyone that hasn't got a service catalogue, it's actually a really good place to look and start at defining that. Service requests. We looked at this when we'd done our version 2 without embarking on the version 3. And it was splitting out these from the incidents that gave us much better management information. We were able to look at the real first-time fix, look at how we could streamline the service request, gaining the correct information from the customer in order to overall enhance the customer experience. Really quite useful. Change management, I've been involved in a previous role with defining the change process, as well as learning a lot from that, and since been involved with implementing it again at MMU at my current place of work. I'll explain the learning curve we went through in a bit more detail, because I think implementing change really helped understand what was missing from the overall ITIL framework. We're about to embark on problem management. This is the next one on the list. We can see definitely how problem management can help us become more of a proactive service than a reactive service, but it's finding the resource, the time, the money, etc., to implement this properly without going through the daily firefighting. So that's definitely something that we'll be looking at very shortly in more detail. There have been a number of challenges. Definite lack of understanding from some of the IT staff, and indeed maybe some of our customers when we've overused the ITIL terminology, but especially those who had not done any form of ITIL training. What's the difference between a problem and an incident and an issue and a query? Surely they're all the same. Why are we looking at doing all this now? What we've managed in the past, why change? I can't see how any of these processes are actually going to benefit me in the future. Where do I find the time for this extra work? It seemed to be a lot of I suppose the challenges were getting buy-in from the staff, something that we hadn't really considered. Yes, we did have some results, and there were a lot of positives to take out of the work we have done. People do like following a process. That actually is true. There's nothing more than actually, if you need to do something, if you do it this way, this is the most effective way of doing it. Taking the time to explain really helps as well. Putting it in their language, enabling them to understand what's going on really helps with getting buy-in for the inclusion of processes and the introduction of processes. And getting buy-in at the right time. Don't spring this on people. Let's not give any surprises. Let's involve the correct people at the correct time. So, I started in MMU about 2.5 years ago. And when I first started, a lot of the staff and managers came up to me, knowing or doing their research on what I'd done in the past, and saying, so is your plan for us to adopt ITIL then? I thought, you can't just adopt ITIL, but no, I don't think my plan is for us to adopt ITIL. My plan is for us to understand and determine where best practice can be applied to improve how we work as an IT organisation. I suppose that just sounded like management woolliness, but well, it is, but I'm not going to tell them that. But no, actually, I don't think the plan was to come in and adopt ITIL. The plan was to look at what was working, and in particular, what wasn't working, and draw on experiences from the past in order to make improvements into what we were doing. And there was opportunity to do this. There wasn't many ITIL-based processes around. A few people had done some of the foundation courses and knew what it was. However, not a lot of work or progress had been made in trying to implement these. But as I thought about it a bit more, I thought about what's missing from ITIL. So ITIL does give you the processes, without a doubt. And we do invest in the service management software or the underlying systems in order to assist you to manage and implement these processes. But what about the rest? So, will ITIL solve our problems? I don't think so, no. One version of a foundation course for all levels of staff means that some staff will find it hard to comprehend and definitely relate to. However, it does give us all a common ground to start with. But what is missing? Have we got any soft skills? ITIL is very process-based, without a doubt. There's change management, but what about cultural change management? How do you do this stuff? How do you introduce new processes into an organisation? ITIL will give you a process to use. Yes, you can pick and choose what that works, but how do you go about introducing that process into your business? So I suppose in short, and sorry Howard, but I did change one of the words. We got the processes, we got the systems, not tech this time, but it just shows that we are all talking about similar things within these presentations. But we need the people, and the people are just as essential to the success of introducing ITIL and introducing processes than just the systems and the processes themselves. I did a bit more thinking, and that is me with the thinking hat on, incidentally. But it's not necessarily ITIL, it's about standardization. But how do you standardize? You can't just get the incident process out of the book and look at implementing it. How do you introduce a new process that, in a sense, people are calling ITIL? And how can you make that process work? How can you make that process effective? And I suppose this is one of the main messages that I'm hoping that we'll get from today's presentation. So what's missing? What's missing out there in the ITIL world? Well, ITIL's great, but we need to train our managers to be managers. They need to be able to manage the people side of things and not just the process. So ITIL would say that you need a change manager and a release manager and a service desk manager, etc. But they don't tell you the kind of attributes of the person that you necessarily need. They will tell you about how to manage the process. So there's something called the ILM qualifications, but to be honest, any type of management qualification would really help with this arena. What else is missing? Well, in order for an IT service to be effective, you need to invest in your service desk. So the Service Desk Analyst, Service Desk Managers course, I know the Service Desk Institute run, or other similar courses are equally important for the service desk. Probably more important than a complete ITIL foundation course, if we're being honest. We need to ensure that the service desk staff are customer service desk staff, not service desk staff. If people are phoning up with issues, with problems, with incidents with your service desk, you need to make sure that you've got the appropriate people on the other end. Recently at MMU, when we recruited our last bunch of service desk staff, I think we asked one technical question. The rest was all about how they would fit into the team, how they would fit into the business. What attributes could they bring to dealing with people? How could they support our IT organisation and get the best out of it? People thought we were bonkers at the time, but I think my look on that was they've gone through the application process. We can see what skills they've got within their applications. However, we can't tell from their applications how they deal with people. That was something that was really quite key. An understanding of your organisation and the people. Although not a course, it's time well spent when defining processes, implementing processes, and moving forward within your own organisation. If you don't know what your organisation's about, then I don't think you can necessarily look at being effective in the work that you are doing. Project management skills. These days, everything seems to be a project. You might not need the full Prince course, but principles behind project management would definitely help when you're looking at introducing them. Managing the issues, managing the risks, looking at the controls that surround what you're trying to do. And one that's most important, I think, is the business analysis skills. Stakeholder identification, mapping and management is really quite key, I think, with introducing processes. Benefits realization, defining what you are wanting to implement and how that's going to benefit your organization is critical with getting the buy-in. Being able to map your processes effectively, looking at what you're doing, looking at where you want to get to, is a skill in itself. You can look at the processes out of the book, but you need to adapt those to your organization. You need to know how you can map your processes, a really big skill. Something that Simone referred to earlier, the character charts. What kind of people do you have within your organization? Different people react differently to changes, different people react differently to management, etc. Look at the character sets within your organization and ensure that you are approaching those staff. They might be needed to be treated differently to some of the staff. They might be introverted instead of extroverts. They just might have a different thought process. All staff, you need to get buy-in from all staff, and it's important that you do that effectively. So managing cultural change. Buy-in is key to any kind of process or development work within IT. And you need to be able to manage your stakeholders. This model helps you identify the different types of stakeholders and how you should handle them, how you should manage them within the work which you do. Low interest, low power means you don't necessarily have to concentrate on these people. However, the techies might be the ones with high power but low interest. Think of the change management process, for example. These are the people you need to keep satisfied and on board. Manage closely the high power and high interest. There may not be as many types of these as you think. However, senior management, the people with the money, the people that will want to know what you're trying to implement and the benefits that this will have. If you keep them on board, then you have a better chance of succeeding. High interest, low power. You could argue that these are the service desks, although I think they have a lot more power than you think they do, as they are the face of your organisation. Either way, you need to keep these informed of what's going on within your organisation. You need to be able to identify the stakeholders as well as manage the stakeholders. And some skills from the business analysis courses are really important, especially within higher education. So, going back to the ITIL and listening to what I've said there, would you implement ITIL again? Or would you do the exams again? Sorry, we have a no. A couple of no's here. Okay. I'm going to move on with this and just give you a quick story about implementing change management. So, implementing this process in NMU gave us a real breakthrough. When we realised that the stakeholders were important as the actual process, it really helped us to introduce a better defined change process. But we had a number of discussions about the change manager. Who should it be? We started off with allocating the comms and training manager. We couldn't afford a new role, but as expected, a lot of emphasis with having a comms and training manager was put on the comms around the changes. So to that individual, that was the most important part of the change process. We then had another little review. We thought, well, why don't I do it? Client services manager, a buy-in from above. But actually, if we looked into more detail into that, it looked as though it's going to be a top-down approach to change management. And would we miss the buy-in that we could expect by actually having a process that was brought in from the top down? We then decided that we could use a coordination role from the service desk. And this meant that the individual had an interest in the change process. Better change management means a reduction in incidents to the service desk. She was able to speak to people on a similar level, highlighting the importance, getting the buy-in and respect, able to look at where the process was going wrong, listening to feedback, and indeed tweaking to ensure that it worked for us. This has proved to be a real success and actually showed us that we got buy-in from other areas as well. But actually, you don't necessarily need to have a separate change manager, especially if you can't resource that. But choosing the appropriate person to manage your change process will actually enable you to get the buy-in and the success that you require. It also helped enhance and develop the individual's persona within the department. They have been able to present the change management back to senior management and show them how it's worked. So, as well as being useful to the university, it's actually been useful to the individual. Which leads me to one of my last points now, and that is the training budget. So you have a training budget, although some people might argue that the training budget is slowly depleting, and it's definitely not an infinite amount of money. So you definitely need to be careful what you spend it on. Should you go down the ITIL route as standard? Many institutions and companies have done this. It will give your staff a number of advantages, and it will teach them the elements of ITIL and IT that they will never use. Well, not in their current role anyway. I think you need to fit your training around your objectives. Is an ITIL overview okay in some circumstances, which would enable you to get money well spent? But there are plenty of courses and opportunities available as well for development, some of which I've mentioned, some of which it would be great to have a business analysis stroke project stroke ITIL 3-day overview in order to develop those people. I actually see conferences, knowledge sharing and events like this as valuable training as well, valuable training and development to share ideas and learn from other people's expertise. But should you spend your training budget on an accreditation course?
Recording has stopped. Recording has started.
Oh, I think we just had a slight glitch there. So should you spend your training budget on an accreditation course? Some might argue yes, some might argue no. I don't know. I can appreciate accreditation is good for the career development and the ongoing career of the staff. But sometimes an overview will do. I think the message is you just need to be careful about the training and how you spend your training budget in order to get maximum effects out of it. ITIL will be appropriate in certain circumstances, but maybe not all. Okay, so to sum up, because I'm nearly at the end of my allotted time, lessons learned. Yes, we have the process. Yes, we have the technology, but it's definitely important to concentrate on the people. An ITIL qualification will not enable you to successfully implement processes. That is very true. However, it does have other benefits, are certainly those where ITIL is mandatory within job descriptions. A structured ITIL could be more beneficial than a foundation course, but be careful what you spend your money on. Know your stakeholders, know your business, and get appropriate buy-in is what I would recommend. That's brought me to the end of my presentation. Has everyone got any questions? I can answer them, or indeed feel free to submit them via Twitter. Thank you for listening.